They called him Wacko Jacko, a name splashed across tabloids, a punchline for late-night shows. But here's the thing, Michael Jackson hated that name. So why did the stories keep coming? The pet chimp, the oxygen chamber, the baby dangling moment. Was he a misunderstood genius? Or was he secretly feeding the madness? This isn't just a story about Michael Jackson's fame. It's about how the world turned him into a circus and whether he helped build the tent. Because when the king of pop became the most talked about man on earth, the question stopped being, is he okay? And became, did he do this to himself? The media machine, where Wacko Jacko began. The nickname Wacko Jacko didn't come from fans. It came from the press, specifically British tabloids like The Sun in the 1980s. They painted him as weird, unstable, and unrelatable. One bizarre headline after another. Jackson sleeps in oxygen chamber. Jackson wants Elephant Man's bones. None of it was confirmed. But that didn't matter, because Bizarre sold papers, and Michael sold better than anyone. And here's the dark truth.
I'm willing to forgive the press and forgive anybody. You know, I was taught to love and to forgive, which I do have in my heart.
The media didn't care if the stories were real. They only cared that Michael was strange enough to make you believe they could be. He wasn't just being followed, he was being stalked by an industry that made billions off his image. And no matter how often he begged them to stop calling him Wacko Jacko, they didn't. Because by then, that nickname had become a brand. But while the press was busy turning him into a cartoon, something else was happening. Michael was doing things that made even fans scratch their heads. MJ's strange choices. Genius or just bizarre? Michael Jackson didn't need help being called strange, because some of the things he did were genuinely out there. He walked through airports wearing surgical masks decades before anyone thought it was normal. He kept a pet chimp named Bubbles and brought him to interviews. He spent millions building Neverland Ranch, a full-blown amusement park where he actually lived. He was once photographed inside a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. That photo went viral. But later, people wondered, did he leak it himself? And here's the thing, these weren't rumors. They were real, but without context, they looked like madness.
I cannot handle this. It's too much.
To his fans, Michael was playful, childlike, and imaginative. He was Peter Pan brought to life. To the media, he was unpredictable, and every move fed the fire. But ask yourself this, if the world saw you as weird, would you fight it, or would you start owning it? Because with Michael, the line between myth and reality was already fading, and behind it all was a man still haunted by a childhood he never really had. A damaged childhood. Before the masks, before the zoo animals, before Neverland, there was just a little boy from Gary, Indiana, forced into the spotlight before he could even spell it. Michael Jackson wasn't just famous. He was raised inside a machine. At age 5, he was performing under pressure. At 10, he was leading the Jackson 5. And behind the scenes, a strict, terrifying father who didn't allow mistakes. Michael wasn't allowed to be a child. So later in life, he tried to build the childhood he never had. Neverland wasn't a publicity stunt. It was his safe place. He once said, "I am Peter Pan in my heart." He surrounded himself with arcade games, animals, and kids, not for attention, but for healing. This wasn't about being wacko. It was about pain. But to a cynical world watching from the outside, it all looked suspicious. Because the media didn't care about his scars. They only cared about the circus. And soon, that circus would spin out of control. Because Michael's personal moments would soon turn into public spectacles. Public stunts or media traps. By the early 2000s, Michael Jackson couldn't do anything without cameras turning it into chaos. But some moments made even his supporters pause. Like that infamous scene in Berlin, when Michael dangled his baby over a hotel balcony. The media exploded. Fans were horrified. He later apologized, saying it was a brief mistake, but the damage was done. Then came the shopping sprees, wandering stores in pajamas, wearing masks, buying life-size mannequins. The headlines practically wrote themselves. But here's what's wild. Some people close to Michael, like Frank Cascio, said this was just MJ being MJ. He was playful, unpredictable, and sometimes didn't realize how things looked to the outside world. So what was it? A man being himself in a world that never let him be normal? Or a pop star addicted to shock value, feeding the same media he claimed to hate? Because every time Michael stepped out, the cameras followed, and every headline made him look more unrelatable, more strange, more isolated. But the darkest twist was still coming, because soon, the rumors would turn into accusations, and the world would never see him the same again. The accusations, the press, and the fallout. By the time the first allegations hit in 1993, Michael Jackson's image was already fragile. He was no longer just the king of pop. He was that strange guy with the pet chimp in amusement park. And when serious accusations surfaced, the media didn't wait for facts. They pounced. Headlines didn't say alleged. They said caught. TV specials ran dramatic music and ominous voiceovers, painting him guilty before a trial even began. The public was split. Fans stood by him, but many others already believed the worst. Even after a massive settlement and no conviction, the damage was done. His 2005 trial didn't help. Though he was found not guilty on all counts, the media made sure those allegations followed him forever.
Complete vindication of a wonderful human being named Michael Jackson.
And here's the cruel part. Many of the same outlets that once worshipped him now made millions destroying him. The Bashir documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, it was edited to make him look unstable. The full footage, never aired, told a different story. But by then, no one cared about the truth. The damage was global. And to the press, Wacko Jacko wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a weapon. But what if he wasn't just a victim? What if part of him embraced the madness? The King of Pop versus Tabloid Punchline. It's easy to forget in all the noise who Michael Jackson really was. The man who broke racial barriers on MTV. The artist behind Thriller, Bad and Dangerous. The entertainer who sold out stadiums in seconds and made history every time he stepped on stage. He didn't just influence music, he reinvented it. He turned music videos into short films. He turned concerts into spiritual experiences. He turned dance into a global language. But somehow the same man who gave us all of that was reduced to a nickname, Wacko Jacko. He begged them to stop using it. He wrote songs about it. Leave Me Alone was a direct message to the media. But the more he pushed back, the louder they got. It was like the world had made up its mind. Michael Jackson couldn't just be a genius. He had to be weird.
Michael Jackson, who has been besieged by photographers all his life.
And in their eyes, weird meant dangerous. But here's the twist. While tabloids mocked him, his fans never left. Not in the US, not in Europe, not in Asia, not anywhere. They saw through the headlines. They saw the human being. So who was Michael Jackson really? A misunderstood legend crushed by the media? Or a pop icon who blurred the line between brilliance and chaos? The answer isn't simple, and maybe that's what made him unforgettable. So, was he wacko or just human? In the end, maybe the real story isn't about whether Michael Jackson was wacko or not. Maybe it's about how fame, trauma, and a ruthless media machine created a version of him that the world couldn't understand, and didn't try to. Yes, Michael made strange choices.
Michael Jackson has died. Jackson was not breathing when paramedics arrived at his home after a 911 call.
Yes, he lived differently than most people could imagine, but he also lived under a microscope no one else has ever experienced. Was he eccentric? Absolutely. Was he manipulative? Maybe. Was he misunderstood? No doubt. Was he a genius? Without question. The truth is, Michael Jackson didn't fit into any box. He was magic and mystery, light and shadow, a legend and a man who sometimes couldn't escape his own myth. So, was he a victim of the media? Or did he help write the script? That's for you to decide. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Michael Jackson misunderstood? Or did he bring it on himself?